Welcome to Show Academy's Solving Spot, where past paper questions turn into full marks, step by step. This question is from May-June 2016, Paper 4, Zone 3. It's a very classic experiment using Visking tubing, and the question is in two parts. Let's start with part 1. The examiner says the bag was filled with starch solution and then placed in a test tube of water. Iodine was added to the water outside the bag. After 30 minutes, the starch solution inside the bag turned blue-black, while the water outside stayed yellow. Exactly like that. Let's go straight to part 1, where the examiner says, explain these results. When the examiner says, explain these results, he wants you to tell him what change happened and why it happened. The result here is clearly stated. The starch solution inside the bag turned blue-black, and the water outside remained yellow as illustrated here. That's the change. So your job is to explain why the color inside changed and why the color outside didn't. Ask yourself, the starch solution inside the bag turned blue-black. Why? Because iodine must have entered the bag and reacted with the starch. That's the only way we get a blue-black color. So iodine went in. But how? We say iodine diffused into the bag. Now wait, why do we say diffused? Why not osmosis? Because osmosis is about water, and here we're talking about iodine particles. So osmosis is out. And why not active transport? Because iodine moved down the concentration gradient, from a higher concentration outside the bag to a lower one inside. There's no energy involved, so active transport is out too. That leaves us with diffusion, the passive movement of particles down a concentration gradient. Now, not all diffusion needs a membrane, but here it happened through a membrane, the Visking tubing. And that membrane makes the game different. It doesn't let everything through. It lets small molecules like iodine pass, but blocks larger ones like starch. So the iodine diffused into the bag. It was small enough to get through. It reacted with the starch, and that caused the blue-black color change. The starch, on the other hand, stayed inside, because its molecules were too large to pass through. The water outside stayed yellow, because no starch came out. So for 4 marks, your answer must include this. Iodine diffused into the bag. Iodine molecules were small enough to pass through. Starch did not diffuse out, and starch molecules were too large to pass through the membrane. Now for part 2. The examiner says, state 3 factors that influence the movement of molecules through membranes. So here we want 3 short, clear points. You could say, temperature, because higher temperature makes particles move faster. Surface area, more area means faster movement. Concentration gradient, the steeper it is, the quicker the movement. But wait, if you check the mark scheme, you might notice something interesting. He also gives credit for points like the number of protein channels or pumps, and the amount of energy or number of mitochondria. And you might ask, hang on, isn't this about diffusion? Why is he accepting answers related to active transport? Great question, and here's the key. Yes, the experiment was about diffusion, but the second part of the question isn't restricted to diffusion. He asked you, what factors influence the movement of molecules through membranes? Not what affects diffusion, but movement through membranes, in general. So you have to think wider. You're not just talking about diffusion now. You're talking about diffusion, osmosis, and active transport. Protein channels and pumps? They're needed for facilitated diffusion and active transport. Energy and mitochondria? That's for active transport, because it needs ATP. So even though the experiment focused on diffusion, this part of the question is asking about all types of membrane transport. That's why the mark scheme allows those answers. And this is your tip. Always read the question carefully. When he says movement through membranes, don't limit your thinking. Zoom out. Think about all transport methods, passive and active. That's how you answer smart. That's how you don't miss marks. And that's how you solve it. Think smart, study smart, see you next time.